Interview.
Sorry, start again.
Okay, I'm going to interview my colleague and friend Rachel about course books. So Rachel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Rachel and I'm a teacher at LSI.
Okay, Rachel, my first question is it useful to use a course book with your classes?
Yeah, certainly. It is useful. As teachers, we never have enough time to plan, so we need something to give us a framework for our course.
Okay, and would you tend to follow a course book from cover to cover, or would you just cherry pick units? How do you use a course book?
Well, I certainly don't use a course book from cover to cover. I think it's important to think about the needs of the student and find out what's relevant to them, what's useful for them, and what are they interested in. So certainly I would cherry pick through a course book.
Okay, and what are you looking for in an ideal course book?
I think that it needs to be functional. The language needs to be functional. It needs to be clear to the students what the objectives of each lesson are. And they need to be able to use the language outside of the classroom, so it needs to be relevant. Also needs to be interesting, so they feel that it's valuable to them.
How do you feel about using authentic texts and listening with your learners?
Well, I think it's very important. I think often there's a problem with students. They can understand everything in the classroom, and then when they go out into the real world, there's a problem. They don't match up. The real world and the course books don't match up. So I think the use of authentic listenings and texts are very, very useful. Often that can be difficult with a low level, but I think it's still possible, but they need to be adapted, maybe.
Okay, so what's your opinion of current trends in course books?
Well, I think there's much more cultural sensitivity in course books now. If we look at old course books, they can be very centred towards Europe or England, and now we do find, sort of more cultural sensitivity within the course book, which is a good thing. Also, there's a bigger focus on pronunciation, which I think is a good thing.
Okay, and how do you view a course book? If you had to sort of put a metaphor to it, do you see it as something that's like a holy book, or do you see the course book as just a useful guide, or is it a restrictive straitjacket?
Well, I would say it's a useful guide. I think it should be something that you're able to supplement, something that you can choose, what's useful for you, useful for your students, and what the teacher likes in a course book. So, yeah, a useful guide and a good framework.
And would you or your school consider using a course checklist before deciding which books to proceed with?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think you always have a mental checklist in your head when you're looking at a new course book. But that's very informal, so it might be a good idea to have a formal checklist just to make sure you don't miss anything. It's also very difficult to evaluate a course book before you've used it, so I think it would be useful to do that at the end of the course and see what has worked, what hasn't worked, and different teachers have different opinions on what they like, what they didn't like, and how it worked for them.
So do you ever get together as a group of teachers and evaluate a course book after you've used it and maybe compare how tasks went, for example, whether it lived up to expectations?
Yeah, certainly. I think often when there are two teachers working together on a course, they'll discuss which books they want to use, and they've used them before, and they'll have different ideas about what's good, what's not good. So we do evaluate course books after they've been used.
And how do you view the teachers' books that come with course books?
Well, sometimes they can be very useful and give you lots of ideas, but sometimes I feel that they can be a bit too prescriptive. They go into too much detail about what the teacher should be doing. For me personally, I need a teacher's book that gives me the answers, so that I can find them very, very easily, and doesn't tell me exactly what I should be doing. I think that's important. It's also good to have activities in the teacher's book that go with the units that you're using and activate the language that the students have been learning.
Great. And do you ever give opportunities to your students at the school to evaluate the course books they've used?
Yes. At the end of every student's course, they evaluate all of the course books that they use. I mean, just on a simple system of, yes, I liked it, I'm sort of indifferent, or I didn't like it. And I think that's very useful.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for your time, Rachel. You'll be seeing this on YouTube.
You're welcome. Thank you.